Hey guys, it's Tom Box. Welcome to MST.TV, and for this video, we are going to be covering the rulings of the hot topic, Virtual World Level 3 Monster, activating its effect to send into the graveyard a Nyan to summon itself out. And will that Nyan be able to trigger when it's sent to the graveyard simultaneously? And I'm going to see if I can give you guys a proper explanation on this. This is, of course, my opinion, and is definitely not a final say on anything. Always ask your head judge on this one, because this one really has judges, kind of slashed in half. Some people say you can, some people say you can't. I'll tell you guys which camp I'm part of when I get into that particular debate. Now, there's other things I want to talk about in this video. Of course, I want to talk about some of the illegal plays that might be going under your noses, especially with an event coming up, very, very close. I want to make sure that you guys are catching these ones so that you don't lose a match due to the fact that something illegal happened that ruined your entire matchup. And especially when it's single elimination on some of these things, that could be a big deal to you. So there's that. So that's what I'm going to be covering today. So if you guys are going to enjoy these kinds of ruling segments, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, ding the notification bell. You can hit thumbs up, thumbs down, up to you how you want to do it. And if you guys really want to help support this channel, and I mean really want to help support it, well, check out the Patreon link down in the description. There are also box dividers available for you. And one last thing to clear up, the giveaway for the 3 boxes of Phantom Rage is going to be drawn, or has already been drawn, so check your emails. But if you did win, it's probably in your email already. Check your spam folder, and yeah, that'll be announced at the end. I'll talk about that at the very end. So getting into this Virtual World Level 3 debate, will that Nyan trigger? We have to go into the card text of, say, a Level 3 Virtual World monster. We're going to go in with GG because this one's easy. So Virtual World GG states that if this card is in your hand, you can target a Virtual World card you control and send one Virtual World card of a different type monster spell trap from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do special summon out this card, then during the end phase do some other effect. So the key part here that we're trying to understand is that you send the card of a different type. Say you targeted a spell card, then you can send into a graveyard a monster or a trap card. So we're going to send a monster for sure. We're sending Nyan in there for sure. And then if you do, is technically, but in terms of a timeline sequence, that is simultaneous. Will that Virtual World Nyan be able to activate? Virtual World Nyan's card text states, if a level 3 monster is normal or special summoned to your field while this card is in your graveyard, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card out as a tuner and banish it when it leaves the field. Also, for the rest of the turn, you can only special summon out level 3 or rank 3 monsters or higher. Okay. So can the Nyan actually activate when it's sent to the graveyard by Lulu or Gigi? And my answer to that is no, it cannot. I'm going to bring up all the counter arguments, such as first of all, people are going to talk about Gazelle. People are going to talk about, what about those Brotar guys and all the stuff that has both a graveyard and a hand trigger? And what about those guys that only have graveyard-based summon triggers? I'm going to talk about all of that just to make my case here so that we're all clear on the same page in terms of my interpretation. You guys can agree or disagree, but you guys can always ask your head judge, of course. The first argument people make are Gazelle. How come Gazelle can activate in the hand even though it was added after the fact, whereas this one say you cannot? The argument is the difference between a public knowledge area, the graveyard, versus the private knowledge area of your hand. Because you can't really reveal the contents of your hand, there's just this whole mechanic built around it right now so that there's more grace for when you can obtain the card to meet that trigger for hand-based triggers. That's just how it works, and it does not even matter whether or not the card is on the ban list. That's just how hand triggers work. And that is actually explicitly stated when it comes to the hybrid cards, which have both a hand and a graveyard summoning effect. But in terms of Gazelle, yeah, you activate the Signet Mining, throw Spinny into the graveyard, add the Gazelle activates in a new chain. And you can't really confirm whether or not they had the Gazelle to begin with if, Gazelle wasn't limited, and they're not going to, make that distinction now, even though it is technically limited. So basically, there's just more grace for the cards that are activating in your hand in terms of when you obtain it. So what about those hybrid monsters that have both a hand and a grave summoning trigger that are the exact same? How come they explicitly have brackets in the text explaining when you can actually activate the card and when you cannot? The reasoning for that is they have to be explicit for these cases because one's a private knowledge area and the other is a public knowledge area, and they definitely don't want to mix the two up together. Using Darkest Diablos as an example, if a dark monster you control is tributed except during the damage step, you can special summon out this card from your graveyard if it was already there when you tributed, or hand even if not. There's a reason for that. First of all, it doesn't prevent, Darkest Diablos from like looping itself, but again, it's mainly there because they want you to guarantee that the Darkest Diablos was already there. Since you cannot confirm the hand, the hand gets that whole grace mechanic, whereas the graveyard does not get that leniency, but they put it explicitly just so that there is no confusion. You can't mix the two up, and that's how it really works. And you can kind of argue, like, how come like the Gazelle, how come Gazelle doesn't state, oh, even if not in hand, because it was already implied that that's how the mechanic works for the hand trigger based effects, versus grave based trigger effects. It is also implied that it has to have already been there. So for graveyard based only triggers, it doesn't put in brackets if it was already there, because that part of the effect is already implied in terms of its trigger. It's pretty obvious, and you can't really argue the whole Gazelle thing. Again, I want to point that out because that was the most common argument, is because you can even like say activate Salamangreat Circle as Chainlink 1, and then you toss a bunch of Salamangreat cards into the graveyard as Chainlink 2, 3, 4, whatever it is, and then you add the Gazelle to hand. You're still going to be able to activate that Gazelle. It was a completely different chain. Everything already happened, and it's because hand-based triggers are different from grave-based triggers. I just want that really, really clear. And since grave is much more strict, the timing has to be correct. So for the virtual world Nyan Nyan, and say a GG sent the Nyan Nyan into the graveyard, since that, I know physically the card went to the graveyard sooner, because you have to send the card first, and if you do, summon out the card. But because in this context, the and if you do, if we consider it as the part of the same timeline, and it technically in terms of the timeline is considered as the exact same point, this was noted inside of course the conjunctions Konami post. And with that being said, since it's considered at the exact same time, it was not already in the graveyard to begin with, and therefore the trigger cannot happen. That's the reason why. And yeah, if you're trying to use some sort of simulator to argue against it, you can't ever use simulators as a point of ruling. That's just wrong. So TLDR, hand-based triggers are not the same as grave-based triggers. Hand-based triggers have much more grace, whereas grave-based triggers are much more strict in terms of its timing and meeting its actual trigger conditions. And that is why Nyan Nyan will not activate if you send it to the graveyard by the effect of Lulu or Gigi. As for Lao Lao, on the other hand, the reason why Lao Lao works is because Lao Lao is actually not simultaneously summoning out a level 3 when it's using its grave-based summoning effect. That particular effect uses the conjunction of then. Then is not considered as simultaneous. If you send the Nyan Nyan into the graveyard and then you use the Lao Lao effect to then summon out a different level 3 onto the field, that is considered as a different timing. And because the timing is different, then already means that the previous event has already occurred, then summon something out. That means it was already in the graveyard to begin with. Then in that case, the Nyan Nyan will summon out. Is that clear enough, guys? I'm trying my best here. All right, so I hope that one actually kind of closes the book on it, but of course, always ask your head judge on this. Okay, going into the illegal play here, the illegal play is Juju and Jaja. This is the most common things that happen when it comes to a grind game, when your opponent needs to break some parts of your board and they have to go into synchros, they have to go into exceeds, maybe break a couple monsters. Make sure when they declare an attack, or when you declare an attack on them, tell your opponent to fan their graveyard just to make sure that they have met the condition. I've seen people keep Juju alive when it's legally supposed to be dead. Yeah, because it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects if and only if there are 2 or more monsters with the same type and attribute but with different names. I've seen people keep it alive because, oh yeah, they kind of mix up the two, whereas Jaja, only requires 2 monsters with the same type and attribute. Name can be the same according to what I've reading so far. So remember that they have to have the right monsters. I've seen people use Jaja because Jaja, they're trying to use Jaja to go into like AA Zeus, but they don't realize that it's actually not going to banish whatever was going to battle, and they use to kind of remove a threat. Yeah, that's not exactly possible. So with that being said, just make sure that you fan your opponent's graveyard just so that you know that the protection is legal, the banishing is legal. Otherwise, you will lose a monster unfairly, and these are the kinds of illegal plays that will cost you a match. And for the one thing that you guys have to catch, especially when Ice Dragon's Prison is such a common card played in most people's side deck these days, make sure whenever your opponent is activating this card, they are using it properly. If they are under a summoning restriction, be very careful. You have to maintain the game state and remember that, oh, they've activated the card that locked themselves in from summoning out anything but a certain type. Say against Eldritch, it's likely going to be stuck under a zombie, so they can't even use these particular cards, like unless they're using it to summon out one of your zombies, like an Ash Blossom, Joyous Spring. That's fine. But then if they're trying to summon out something to banish something on your field and you do not play zombies, make sure you catch that. And same for like Altergeist. Altergeist Multi-Faker locks you into summoning only Altergeist cards. And if you go into something where they go ahead and activate the card, you would have gotten to an illegal game state where, well, you lose a lot more cards than you're supposed to, and that's actually a pretty big swing in your opponent's favor. So you don't want to put yourself in that situation. Try to maintain the game state, because of course a lot of people look at Ice Dragon's Prison and they just jump to the conclusion, you know, take a card out of your graveyard and banish 2 cards. They forget that it has to special summon, and that special summoning part of it is part of the whole package. If they can't special summon, they can't use the effect. That's it. So for the giveaway stuff, I don't want to accidentally share someone's name without their permission, because I did not put it in the agreement when you join the thing. So for the next 4 boxes, I will share who the winners are, because you will have agreed to it ahead of time. Therefore, it makes my life a little bit easier so that I can actually show it in the video. Otherwise, I have to ask for the permission after the fact, and it just gets really late and messy. So that's how it's going to be done in the next one. So when you agree to it, it's just going to be like, you give me permission to put your name up. That's it. I don't want to deal with any kind of accidental doxing. That's all I got for this ruling video. If you guys enjoyed this ruling video, hit that thumbs up button. If you guys enjoyed this whole debate and you have other questions, leave it down in the comment section. And yeah, if you guys want to help support this channel, check out the Patreon link down in the description. Do you guys agree or disagree? Well, it's up to you guys. That's all I got for this video, guys. Always ask your head judge, and I'll see you guys in the next one.